Hello everyone and welcome to our training today on fostering children's self-esteem. I am so glad that you are with us today and participating in this required topic. It is such an important topic for every single teacher, caregiver, director, parent, whoever you are. This is so important for you, and I've got a lot of really cool and new techniques and information to share with you today. So again, very much appreciate you being with us. Before we get started, let's go ahead and go through some housekeeping items. This training has been approved by the Texas Early Childhood Professional Development System, otherwise known as TechPEDS. So there is a training ID number for this particular training. On your Tim the Trainer portal, make sure that you have your personal TechPEDS Workforce ID number entered on your portal before you complete your assessment at the end of this training. That way your training certificate will automatically be uploaded into your personal TechPEDS account, and that is super nice and easy for everyone. If you have any questions about this training today, there are a couple of different ways that you can get a hold of us. On our website, timthetrainer.com, you can click on in the upper right-hand corner and you can send us a direct message. You can email or you can call if you have any questions about this training, if you need additional information beyond the scope of the training material or additional resources. We are here for you. Keep in mind that child care regulations and Texas Rising Star states that trainings must be completed in a reasonable amount of time in order for them to be accepted. The best way I have found to explain that is the total number of clock hours of training that you complete in a single day should never exceed the total number of hours that you worked in that particular day. Definitely the total number of clock hours that you complete in a single day should never exceed the total number of hours, waking hours there are in that day. That will definitely cause problems right there. All right, let's go ahead and get started. All right, so our objectives for today. All right, we're going to identify some key factors that influence self-esteem development in young children in an early education environment. And I'm also going to talk a lot about the adult in today's training. And that's going to be one thing that's a little bit different about this course and what I've done in the past, because not only are we going to talk about fostering self-esteem in children, but I really want y'all to see how important it is for the adult to have healthy self-esteem when interacting with the child as well. All right, we're going to implement practical strategies to support and nurture positive self-esteem, self-image, and confidence in daily classroom routines. That word confidence seems to be coming up quite a bit in a lot of conversations in multiple different areas of our business these days. Having that confidence, knowing your worth, knowing your value, and downloading that to the children. Really good stuff right there too. And our other objective is to create that inclusive and supportive atmosphere that encourages autonomy, resiliency, and a sense of belonging in young children and early educators. All right, so those are our three objectives that we will focus on in today's class. The benefit to the participants is my goal is for you to gain practical tools and insights to confidently support children's emotional growth, leading to a more positive and nurturing classroom environment, And again, kind of what I said earlier, what I really want y'all to focus on right here is that emotional growth, not only in the child, but in the adult as well. All right, so that's what we're going to focus on. So, so much of what I do, so many of the trainings that I conduct, I talk a lot about the adult first, child second model. And this is a model that, that we practice with conscious discipline. And y'all know that I'm a huge, faithful follower and believer in conscious discipline. I'm a certified instructor for conscious discipline. I actually work for conscious discipline. It's a lot. But that adult first, child second model just continues to be proven accurate over and over and over again in almost every aspect of our business. Even when I do leadership trainings, we take this same model and we adapt it to leader first, school family second. So the leader has got to have the qualities and the skills before they can lend that to their team. As I've been doing a lot more coaching and mentoring, over the last couple of years with some of the changes that I've gone through and my lifestyle, this is why I wanted to redo this training today and kind of change the focus on it, because the expectation is to foster healthy and supportive self-esteem in children, but it's very, very difficult for an adult to create that healthy environment and build that confidence and resiliency when the adult themselves is struggling with their own identity, their own confidence, their own value and worth, okay? And we all hear this. You see it on social media, you see it on t-shirts, you see it on bumper stickers, you've got to love yourself before you can love others. You have to be able to love the person that you see in the mirror. We all hear all of this stuff that's out there. And I'm going to tell you, it's all true. Okay? It's 100% true. The way we see ourselves is a reflection of our behavior. The way we see ourselves, the way we value ourselves, contributes to our ability to meet expectations, whether it's an expectation at work, whether it's an expectation in a relationship, personal relationships, social relationships, intimate relationships. The way you see and value yourself is how you meet those expectations, or you don't meet those expectations. And as we continue to move through this chapter in life that we are in right now, there are a lot of people that are struggling with self-identity. There are a lot of people struggling with their value that they give to society. And especially in the early education industry, as we are going through this transition, in our business model and kind of where we land in the community, right? So we've got to focus on our own individual self-esteem and self-value before we can take this into the classroom and transfer it and download it to the children. Because if you're a director and you're participating in this webinar today, or you're watching this video, I really encourage you to reflect on your team building skills and how do you get your employees to feel valued? How do you get them to understand their worth, right? And that needs to be a big part of your culture right there. We are not daycare workers. We are not babysitters. We are early educators. You have such an incredibly important job. And what you do in the classroom with those children is going to lay the foundation for who they will become for the rest of their lives. You have an incredibly important career, all right? So we've got to get people to understand that, okay? If you put an adult in a classroom who does not believe in themselves, who does not have confidence, who does not have passion, grit, determination, then how can you expect that person to create a healthy emotional environment for the children? I hope this makes sense to everyone right here. All right? So please take a moment to reflect on the adult first, child second piece of this. Now, as we continue to move through this material, I kind of want you to take everything I say from this point forward and kind of divide it in half. All right? Look at the adult side of it and then look at the child side of it next. Okay? But you always have to look at the adult side first. Okay? The adult that is interacting with the child has to have the skills first. Okay? And then it might be that within your program, you create a plan to foster a healthy and positive self-esteem environment for the adults that you serve first. Okay? So, just wanted to lay that out there for you. All right, now, of course, you know, everything I do, I've got to tie in the child care minimum standards to this. So here you go right here. When we talk about our pre-service training, and pre-service training is that training that your brand new employees receive, and a brand new employee working in a licensed child care facility with less than 2 years of experience. Part of pre-service training is fostering children's self-esteem. So this is a required training topic that is included in your pre-service training. But even after that initial hire, y'all, this training is so important for everybody, every single year, constantly reflecting, constantly growing, looking for ways to improve that healthy self-esteem in everyone that we work with. I found this quote, and geez, this quote really hit me hard right here. And not to go down some personal rabbit holes and to get really emotional, it's almost like therapy right here, but it really kind of is. But this is a really good quote that drives this home. It is easier to build up a child than it is to repair an adult. All right? So choose your words wisely. Choose your behavior wisely. So this kind of goes back to what I was just talking about when we talk about importance and values, right? What we do in that classroom is having a lifelong impact. And I bet every single person that is participating in this training today or watching this video, you can probably tell a story about when you were a child and an adult, whether it be a teacher or a parent or a family member, or maybe another student, an older sibling, right? Someone that said something that belittled you or put you down, and 40 years later, you're still hanging on to that, right? That mental model is there, and that behavior or those words that were said to you, excuse me, when you were in elementary school is still hanging in there, right? And again, I bet every single one of us can tell a story about that. I know I definitely could. Being the youngest of 4 children, not just the youngest of 4 children, but I was the youngest in the entire family on both sides. There were a lot of things that were said and done to me, by other kids and other adults that I still hang on to this day. Okay. Now take that into a classroom environment. I'm sure a lot of you have had teachers that have said or done something that you're still hanging on to this day, right? So we've got to be very consciously aware of how we respond to young children. We want to respond and not react to young children, especially when it comes to building that self-esteem. All right? And something else that I wanted to address here, because once again, as I've been doing a lot more coaching here lately, something else that I have really noticed is I want y'all to reflect on the difference between confidence and ego. All right? Because I see teachers and directors, but let's just focus on teachers right here. I have teachers that I have worked with that walk into a classroom with confidence, but I've also seen teachers and adults that walk into classrooms with an ego. And there is a big difference between confidence and ego. And how that translates and how it downloads to a child is very important for you to reflect on. Okay? Now, I'm not saying that ego is a bad thing. Okay? Having a healthy ego is good. And we want to encourage and build people up to have a healthy ego. But sometimes people take an ego too far, and their actions and their words don't match the energy that they're delivering. So that's where you see that there's a difference between confidence and ego. And the word that I like to attach to confidence is passion. All right? When you've got confidence, you've got passion. And confidence and passion is what moves a person forward. All right? And ego is what gets you through today. All right? So think about that whenever you go into a classroom. When you're interacting with a child, especially when you're interacting and engaging with a child that is in a moment of upset, that is in a moment of struggle, when you have a child that has a perceived threat of danger, okay? What energy are you taking to that relationship? Are you taking confidence and passion, or are you taking your personal ego into that interaction? Okay? And really kind of reflect on what is going to be most beneficial to the child in that exact moment with their particular need. Is your confidence and your passion going to help move that child forward and help them grow? Or is it your personal ego? Is that just going to get you through the current situation? All right? So there's a lot to unpack right here. I could probably do a 2-hour training just on that topic right there. Let's look at some of the factors that lower self-esteem in young children right here. And, something else that I have discovered doing this topic is, once again, it's very easy to go down a personal rabbit hole and start reflecting on your own life, your own upbringing when having these conversations. And I believe that is completely healthy, all right? Because in order for you to really understand the message that is being delivered here, you got to be able to feel it. And not just feel it, but anytime you can tie the message to a personal event or a personal situation, you're going to remember it and you're going to be able to reflect and apply it much better. All right? So, just kind of keep that in mind right there. How much the child feels wanted, appreciated, and loved. Now, I know that every family out there, they want their child. They want their child to feel appreciated. They want their child to feel loved. But we always have to look at this through other people's version of reality, okay? And how someone feels wanted, appreciated, and loved is going to be different for each individual person based on their mental models, based on their upbringing. And trust me, I have worked with a lot of schools, a lot of teachers, a lot of families that feeling of appreciation, that feeling of love, that feeling of value is defined very differently from one person to another. And while you may know what it feels like to be wanted, appreciated, and loved, doesn't necessarily mean that that child you're working with or that other adult has ever had those positive, healthy feelings. All right? Or it might look and feel very different to them. So, don't make the assumption that every person you work with, adult or child, their experiences are the same as yours. Okay, because they're most likely not. All right. So reflect on, what do you do in the classroom to ensure that that child knows that you want them there, that you appreciate that child, that you love that child unconditionally. Okay. Look at this both verbally and non-verbally. Okay. The tone of voice, your body language, the way you respond to situations, the way you may react to situations. Okay. And it's going to be different for each individual child. And I always like to add right here, always remember that every single child is in your classroom for a reason. Not because that family enrolled that child in your school, not because that director put that child on your roster, but a power much greater than all of us put that child in your presence. Okay? There is a reason why that child is with you. All right? It could be a lesson. It could be a blessing. All right? But there is a reason right there. Don't deny that opportunity. Okay? Don't resist that opportunity. All right? And it goes both ways right there. There is a reason why you're that child's teacher. So there's the blessing or the lesson for the child as well. We also see, the way a child sees himself, often built from what parents and those closely say. Your outside voice becomes their inside voice. So always remember that right there. Your outside voice becomes their inside voice. And a lot of times there are comments made that are not intentional. Okay? Like my mom used to tell me all the time that I was an accident. Mom and dad did not plan on having me. I was her oops baby, right? Well, mom did not mean any harm anytime she said that, but my entire time, growing up, that's what became my mental model, is that I was an oops, I was an accident, and if mom and dad could do it all over again, I wouldn't be here. And that still to this day is stuck in my head, right? And that's just a great example of your outside voice becomes their inside voice. So we need to always be consciously aware of what we say around young children and how they may perceive those comments. Okay? Sarcasm, should not be in a classroom, especially with young children. Young children do not know how to process sarcasm, and that sarcasm becomes their inner speech. Okay? So always kind of keep that in mind as well. A child's sense of achievement, thus that dopamine, those natural chemicals that are released from the brain when you do something well. And when you don't have enough of those chemicals released from the brain, it impacts and it lowers self-esteem. All right? Now, these do need to be genuine. They do need to be authentic. But you can create these situations where a child can have that sense of achievement. Now, that might mean that you have to change your perception of what achievement is. And it might be different for every single child. A child being able to pick up 10 blocks and put 10 blocks on the shelf could be a sense of achievement for that particular child. Where the child over here might be able to pick up 20 blocks or all of the blocks and put them on a shelf. Okay? That's their sense of achievement. So everyone's going to have a little bit of a different skill set. And that's your job as an early educator, is to evaluate each individual child and what they are capable of and where their achievement levels are. But I cannot expect every single child in the classroom to be able to pick up 20 blocks and put them on a shelf, because that may not be realistic for every single child. Okay? And we want to celebrate. Now, when we talk about celebrations, when we talk about acts of kindness, words of affirmation, what we focus on, we get more of. Okay, it's that laws of attraction. So always remember that too. And then the fourth thing right here, how the child relates to others. So don't forget about the importance of pro-social skills, the ability to form those trusting relationships, those meaningful relationships. So in early education classrooms, you need to have a lot of attunement activities. Those meaningful connections, that joint attention. And that's going to help a child with the way that they relate to each other. Now, I kind of have the same list right here, because I wanted you to kind of see this from a different perspective. Factors that lower self-esteem, how much the child feels wanted, appreciated, and loved, how the child sees himself, often built from what parents and others close by say, that sense of achievement, and how a child relates to others. So what I want you to remember right here, and this is a formula that we use in a lot of our different trainings, events plus perception equals outcome. Okay, events, so anytime you have an event or a circumstance in the classroom, how you perceive that situation creates the outcome. All right, now when we talk about E plus P equals O, events plus perception equals outcome, now take that and flip it from the child's point of view. Because we're not just talking about the adult here, we're also talking about the child. So anytime there is an event in the classroom, okay, whether it's social or physical or cognitive, how the child sees the situation also creates the outcome. Okay, so many times when we practice E plus P equals O, we only look at it from the adult's point of view. But we have to be able to reverse this situation and see it from the child's point of view as well. Okay? Now the other thing, I'm just going to add a little bonus right here. When we talk about events plus perception equals outcome, E plus P equals O, we could also change that E to energy. Energy plus perception equals outcome. What energy are you bringing to the situation? Okay, what energy are you bringing to the conflict? What energy are you bringing to the opportunity that is in front of you? All right. Now, the great thing about energy, when we talk about what energy does the adult bring to the situation, energy is downloadable. So the energy that you bring is downloaded to the child. Okay? So whatever energy you bring to the situation is going to result in the child's energy plus their perception, which creates the outcome. Now, again, this takes practice, but it's all about mindset. It's all about mindset. So looking at different ways that we can increase self-esteem in young children, of course, appreciating the child. Now, appreciating the child, it needs to be authentic. It needs to be genuine. It needs to be from the heart. You can't make this stuff up, all right? And start out small. Start out small. Every single child that you have in your classroom, you can find something that you appreciate about that child. Verbally express that in a kind, loving way. All right? I really appreciate the way you push in your chair when you get up from the table. That is so helpful. All right? I really appreciate how you hang your jacket up whenever you take it off when we come in from the playground. That is so helpful. Okay, practice this language right here. Okay, and again, you can take it small. You can take it small. Now remember, I talked at the beginning, this is always an adult first, child second model. So not only do we practice the language of appreciation with the children, but practice the language of appreciation with the adults that you work with too. I really appreciate how you show up to the school on time every day and you are ready to engage those children at 8 o'clock when your shift begins. That is so helpful. All right? And use those affirmations right there. Another way that we can help increase children's self-esteem is telling a child that you love or care about them. Tell the child that you are important to them, or the child is important to you. Sorry. All right? Now, again, this has to be genuine. It has to be authentic, right? So, never tell someone you love them unless you really love them. And it might mean that you need to understand what the word love means. There's a difference between loving someone and being in love with someone, right? I love all of you for working in early education and doing what you do every single day. I love all of you for that, but I'm not in love with any of you. All right. So, sometimes we have to understand the difference right there. Okay. But we can definitely care about, everyone that we interact with. We've also had a lot of conversations recently about, words that are used throughout the day that have lost their meaning and lost their value. It just has become like a common norm to use these words, like please and thank you, right? And I'm sorry, right? Those are just like on auto program and they just come out of our mouth, but we don't really mean them, okay? You have to actually mean it, okay? And so when you tell someone, I care about you, you're important to me, focus on the energy and how that's coming out. It has to be genuine, okay? And again, this takes some practice for you. Y'all, one of the best things that you can do to foster a healthy self-esteem is to spend time with that child. Children need our presence, not our presents. All right? It's not about the reward. It's not about the materialistic objects, the gifts, the surprises, right? It's simply time spent with them. So I'm going to go back to what I mentioned in a couple of slides ago. It's that joint attention, that face-to-face time, that attuned attention, those meaningful connections. Y'all, that's what it's all about. And you cannot increase a child's self-esteem by spending time on a tablet, all right, on an electronic device. It needs to be human to human, face to face, all right, physical touch to physical touch. Those of you working in an infant, toddler, young 2-year-old classroom, 60% of your day should be face-to-face with a child. I can't stress that enough. 60% of your day should be face-to-face with a child. The most important thing you can do to help build their self-esteem. All right? Now remember, adult first, child second. That also means the best way to build those meaningful connections and that positive and healthy self-esteem in adults is to spend time with them. Choices are so empowering. All right. Once again, it activates a different part of the brain. Okay. There are chemicals that are released from the brain whenever you make a positive choice. We want to create a lot of opportunities where children make choices. And when a child makes a choice, you want to respect and appreciate the choice that they make. The child may not always make the choice that you're hoping that they make, all right? But we can still appreciate that. Now, we can encourage them to make different choices, but we want those choices to be available. Now, when we talk about, and I can do a 4-hour training just on choices. I actually teach a 4-hour class just on choices, all right? Whenever you give a child a choice, you got to look at your end game. And what is the end game? Well, let's say the end game is to get the child outside on the playground. Okay, that's the goal, is to get the children out onto the playground. All right, so, all right, class, it's time to go out on the playground. Okay, you've got a choice. You can walk to the playground door just like this, or you can skip to the playground door just like this. Which works best for you? All right. Now, I gave them 2 positive choices on how to get to the playground door. They can walk just like this, or they can skip just like this. All right. And whichever one they choose, you respect. But the goal is to get them to the playground safely. All right. So sometimes I see teachers do this. It's time to go outside. Everyone line up at the playground door. You can walk to the playground door, or you can just miss your outside time. Well, do you see the problem there? You're not reaching your goal. Okay. So keep them positive right there. And that's what we're going for. Once again, I do have a webinar that is on the schedule for 2026, all about choices. So stay tuned for that right there. We want our children to be independent, all right? So fostering that independence in the children that you are working with. And this takes a lot of encouragement, and it takes a lot of practice. When we talk about confidence, once again, confidence has to be practiced before you can expect independence in a child, okay? You got to remember the way that our brain is wired, especially upon birth. Our brain is wired to be dependent on other people, right? So when you look at the basic survival skills of a child when we're first born, the basic survival skill is crying, which signals our caregiver that we have an unmet need. So our brain expects other people to take care of us, okay? Go back to an infant room, and that's basically how it is. So, just because they grow up to be a toddler and a 2-year-old, the brain doesn't automatically shift gears and becomes an independent person. All right? Because the wiring in that brain is still expecting someone else to take care of me. I see this happen in a lot of classrooms where it's like, well, they're 2 years old now. They need to be independent. Well, have you practiced this? Have you built their confidence up? All right, it doesn't just flip on like a light switch. So, we got to do a lot of practicing. We got to do a lot of building that confidence, a lot of encouragement to be able to get them to that point. Usually where I see a child that is struggling with their self-esteem and they're lacking independence, all right, it's because there's been a lack of effort or a lack of practicing of those skills. It's more of an expectation from the adult rather than an opportunity to teach, okay? So that might be something that you want to reflect on as well. One thing I love about working with young children is, they don't have that inner speech, that voice that we have inside of our head. That doesn't come online until the average age of 7. And so that when we talk about children having immature inner speech, I like to say, they have no filter, because they don't, all right? Your filter is your inner speech. That's what keeps you from saying and doing things that you shouldn't. But when you have no filter, then things just come out. So, they're very good about expressing their opinions and telling you lots of stuff, okay? Listen, right? Listen. Your job as an early educator is to see the world from the child's point of view. And you have to be able to see the world from their version of reality, okay? Well, how do you do that? You do that by listening. Because they have no filter, they're going to tell you and show you what their reality is. Okay? And you've got to be able to understand it's not about what's right or wrong. All right? It's their version of reality. And then you can adapt your plan based on that. Okay? But value and respect what the child has to say. Listen to them. And when we listen, we focus our attention. We look them in the eyes. Be very consciously aware of your facial expressions and what your body is saying, right? I know that I have to be consciously aware of this, especially when I'm in a social situation and someone is telling a story or someone is saying something, and I have to be very consciously aware of what my face is saying, right? And I have a couple of friends that will sometimes say, Timothy, fix your face, right? So that's kind of how we have to be in the classroom too, right? Fix your face, because your face is sending a message, especially when a child is sharing something important to you, okay? So listening involves body language, eye contact, all right? And once again, that energy that we're giving off right there. Many of us grew up in situations where, when we asked the word, why? Because I said so, right? Many of you had parents or guardians that said, because I said so. Well, we need to take the time to explain our reasons, all right? And sometimes it is simple as, my job is to keep you safe. Your job is to help me keep you safe, right? And sometimes that's the explanation, right? My job is to keep you safe. Your job is to help me keep you safe, right? But when you do have a child, and this comes online, mid 2s, 3s, that they are going to be, start pushing back and asking why and being resistant and being insubordinate. That's just part of human development right there. We need to explain the reason why. Now, remember your vocabulary. Remember the child's vocabulary. Sometimes I see adults go into too much explanation that is over the child's head or level of understanding, okay? So when you do your explanation or your reasoning, it needs to be based on the child's level of development and understanding, okay? But this is going to help increase their self-esteem, especially when you can really drill down what I started this conversation with. My job is to keep you safe. Your job is to help me keep you safe. All right? So always tie it into safety right there, and that's going to be helpful for you. Next way we can increase self-esteem in young children is feed the children that you serve with positive encouragement. I just recently did a training, and again, I've got this coming up as a webinar in 2026. The difference between a fixed mindset versus a growth mindset, right? And if you haven't ever done any studies or read about, the difference between a fixed mindset or a growth mindset, it's really cool stuff right there. But, it's like the little engine that could, right? I think I can. I think I can. I know I can. I know I can, right? And that's the growth mindset. And a growth mindset leads to a healthy self-esteem. And that comes from positive encouragement. And part of positive encouragement is recognizing that mistakes are opportunities to learn. Because someone makes a mistake does not make them a failure. Failure is necessary to move forward. Okay? Every single one of us participating in this webinar, every single person watching this video has had failure in their life. But you probably wouldn't be where you're at today if it wasn't for that failure, because it's opportunities for growth. Always keep that in mind, because it's no different for the children. All right? A huge part of positive encouragement is recognizing that mistakes are opportunities for growth. All right? Oops, you made a mistake. We'll try again tomorrow. Okay? Oops, you made a mistake. Let's continue practicing. You got this. All right? And those are positive encouragement techniques. Okay? Once again, I could spend an entire day teaching a class about positive encouragement. You know, there's a lot to be included right here. Last way we want to help increase self-esteem in young children is we want to encourage the child to try new and challenging activities. We want consistency in the classroom. We want predictability in the classroom, but you also got to throw some small nuggets of new and challenging activities for that particular child and their development. Okay, so it's kind of like, you know, you always want to put the ball a little bit further and a little bit further out, so that every day they got to continue to reach it, continue to reach, continue to reach. And that's how we grow. Now, the part that you got to be really aware of right here is each individual child and what is each individual child capable of. While I can move the ball forward an inch for one child, but then the next child I can move the ball forward 6 inches, right? But I can't expect to move the ball forward 6 inches for every single child. It's going to be different for everyone. But again, we don't want the child to become complacent, so we want to throw in those small nuggets of new and challenging activities and practice, and always use that word practice instead of try, okay? And we practice these new activities often. You know, the last thing that I want to leave you with here is, you know, the 4 techniques on self-esteem that I always like to practice in the classroom, you know. So if this is something, if you want to take a screenshot of this, if you want to print this up and put it up in your classroom somewhere, directors, if you want to put this up in the break room and in the director's office, I think this is fantastic. But these are the things that you always want to keep in mind when fostering that healthy and positive self-esteem. It's encouragement. Okay, you've got this. I believe in you. All right. It's praise. You did it. You hung your jacket on the hook just like this so that it would stay clean, right? A lot of praise right there. Mutual respect. We got to be able to understand and respect each other and respect what each individual person is capable of, all right? And then the 4th thing is the ability to deal with failure. Mistakes are opportunities for growth. Everyone is going to make a mistake. Look at the opportunity and not the failure. All right? And we practice these 4 techniques every single day, no matter what classroom, no matter what environment, no matter what age group of children, whether you're working with adults, whether you're working with the families, with the community. You're going to have the opportunity to practice encouragement, praise, mutual respect, and dealing with failures and mistakes or opportunities for growth every single day, right? But it starts with you. Remember, this is an adult first, child second model. You've got this. All right? You've got this. That was a lot of information in a very short amount of time right there. Once again, if you have any questions about the material that we went over today, if you need more information beyond the scope of the training material, if you need additional resources, you can message me directly from our website. You can send me an email. You can call. We are always available here at Tim the Trainer. We are always available to help you out. I am going to be on the road quite a bit over the next few weeks. So if you do call, it might take me a little bit of time to get back with you. Email and messaging works best, especially this time of the year. But we're here for you. All right. We've got a lot of super exciting stuff scheduled for 2026. A lot of new training opportunities, a lot of new training events. Stay tuned. Make sure you follow us on social media, either Facebook or Instagram, Tim the Trainer. Keep our website as your best friend. We've got a lot coming up. If you ever have a particular training topic that you would like to see offered or expanded on, please let me know. I'm always looking for new training topic ideas. And you know, y'all are living it and breathing it. Let me know what you need, and we will do some research and get that created for you. We're going to go ahead and post the link for you to complete your assessment. Those of you that are participating live today, you can go ahead and complete your assessment to get your certificate of completion. There is a $5 fee for the certificate. So that link has been posted there in the comment section. If you're watching the recording, then the link is right there on our website. There you go. Thank you everyone so much for participating today. This was really wonderful. I look forward to seeing you again very, very soon. Bye.